Thank you so much, Joseph, for the technical presentation of GitHub Advanced Security. And now I'm gonna talk more about evaluating our application security strategy. So there are two parts of this. The first is tooling, but the other things is processes as well. My name is Sanja Milic. I'm a DevSecOps specialist at Solidify. I'm also chapter leader for OWASP Stockholm. I have a background as a developer, so I remember how much I struggled with security and how we did security back in the days. Now it's a while ago, but I still remember the problems we had. But before we start with our recommendations, our processes, let's talk about the state of application security. We did receive some metrics before in the session before, but this is something we've seen during the last years. Now we do invest billions of dollars in security, but if you look at the metrics, we are delivering more and more code. Fine, this is what we are supposed to do, but we have a linear increase of vulnerabilities or security threats introduced. One thing is really interesting here. We are talking about vulnerabilities more. So 2 thumbs up, that's what we achieved, but still 85% of applications still contain some type of security issue. And if you look at the details, these are the source of vulnerabilities. So unchecked dependencies, and we have a lot of those. For certain languages, between 80 and 90% of our code base is made of dependencies. And this is something that we are importing from the internet in our applications and then deploying them to the servers that we are really, really careful about. So kind of we're missing the point there. But of course, we're still going to use dependencies because it really improves our efficiency. And the second is employee error and exposed access to tokens, unsafe code patterns. And as you have seen previously, those are the kind of points that are exploited. And instead of employee error, I would say employee mistakes, because mistakes happen. So let's talk about scenario. And this scenario is, we know that we need to shift security left. And you've probably seen something like this so previously, where we're talking about the test and builds and deployments and so on. But when it comes to the breach, there is no upper limit on what this can cost. So when it comes to kind of exploited organizations, you have some examples out there with organizations struggling like this. And now, like in recent time, we have Tieto, for example, having problems with this and affecting a lot of people. But it is much easier to talk about being secure than actually doing it. Joseph mentioned already, we have a huge gap between number of security specialists and number of developers out there, 1 to 100, that's quite a lot. And on top of that, when we ask developers, all right, so what is the problem that you're facing in everyday work when it comes to the security, they are saying one thing. And one of the things is lack of knowledge. On top of that, we have always budget questions, not only for the tooling, but the processes as well. So the tooling is one thing, but basically working with security is going to cost something, right? And then it is hard for the teams to keep momentum and focus going further and securing this. So what I want to say is security isn't just a tool set, it's mindset and the process. So a couple of things to think about. Going further, I want to have this situation, or we have this organization, right? So they have GitHub Advanced Security, and they have implemented all the scan they needed with this tooling. So if you look here, you have secret scanning, you have software composition analysis, and we also have code scanning enabled. Now this organization is working with the containers, so they are usually scanning the containers with the plugin. The GitHub Advanced Security can accept plugins as well, or third-party scanners. But they're also using Azure Container Registry and scanning the containers over there. They have also implemented DAS scanning. In this case, they're using OWASP ZAP. I love that too, but you need some configuration. So they did everything they can to actually have the tooling help them with this. And on top of that, they are actually doing the monitoring. So they have a GitHub Advanced Security monitoring dashboard. They are using Defender for DevOps. They are using Power BI. So they're quite set technically. So let's look at the metrics. How are we doing? Is this good? So in this case, they have onboarded all their teams, and these are the results. So they're done. They have actually implemented the tooling, but they have missing one thing. So first thing, let's look at the Dependabot errors. We have over 18,000 errors on the Dependabot or vulnerabilities. We have over 6,000 code scanning errors or vulnerabilities. And then we have quite significant number of secrets exposed. But once again, question is this good enough? On top of that, what we are seeing, there is quite high number of severe alerts compared to less severe alerts. And also, when we look at the metrics on the bottom here, what we are seeing that we have very little progress. So age of alerts is over 1 year. We have remediation rates of 162 days, more than 4 months, and net resolve day rate, which means that how many vulnerabilities are resolving versus receiving is quite low. So we have the tooling is working, we're getting alerts, but we're not actually improving, we're not actually working with those. So in the scenarios like this, when you ask, okay, what is problem here? It's usually, volume from the beginning. You have a huge volume of alerts, and the question for the team is, okay, so what is good enough for now? What should I aim for? Should I aim for 0? Is this even possible, given the budget, given priorities that we have? So questions arise. Does this result match desired security posture? Because this is something that you have in organizations. How do they align with agreed risk acceptance? Another problem that we usually hear is not enough time to fix security. So there are priority issues. And then, of course, knowledge. It's usually knowledge. And in that case, who will provide help needed? And my favorite, this one is hilarious. Basically, those risks are not relevant to me or my team, so I'm good. And this is an important thing to keep in mind. So the perception of risk and perception of security, like posture and completeness, is different between various teams. And if you look at organizations, you usually have somebody in an organization, IT security, or even CIO, who is responsible for certain IT risks and needs to kind of put the risk acceptance on what is secure. But of course, those individuals don't have enough hands-on knowledge to actually help out in a good way. So when we talking about development teams down there, and when we're talking about who is setting requirements for the teams, we see quite a lot of different units, different individuals that put in requirements. So usually business requirements are the biggest choke of requirements that developer team has. Then we have DevOps. For example, DevOps unit can say, all right, we need to build the code like this. We're going to do automatic deployments. We're going to run some code. We have certain requirements when it comes to pull requests and what to run on those pull requests. Maybe you have operations team that dictates, all right, so we're going to use containers for everything. You need to run certain SID numbers for users in those containers. They might have other requirements on you as well. And then we have two last groups here. You have IT security, and then you have risk and compliance. And those are a bit extra tricky because they're not really described in a way that developer teams can actually take this requirement and do something with it. It's usually on high level and a bit fuzzy, you know. So for example, like IT security risk, like all data needs to be encrypted in REST. Reasonable? How? What is good enough? So there are a lot of questions and not that many answers. So when we look at from a team perspective, basically what we're seeing is this. Like who is setting requirements, who is responsible, what is acceptable. You will get some different results. You will get some different answers. So let's clarify those things. Let's see what we can do here. And on top of that, you have this poor guy who is sitting on this responsibility, getting some compliance audit. Once again, AI generated. Look at the text. But I like the picture. It really impersonates a CIO getting some interesting result from, let's say, some audit. All right, so let's try to solve this issue. We want to move left, right? Shift left. But our organizations are quite traditional still. So it's not just, okay, so let's let developers do security. Fine, I'm all for that. But then you have different units that have different responsibilities, and they need to sync with developers. And then we have those supermen we're going to talk about shortly. There are different kind of descriptions of what security champions do. So there are certain organizations that are creating community of practice, which are security champion. So they will help out with coding, they will do hands-on stuff. But what we at Solidify have seen, this is not really enough. So security champions will connect coding and cybersecurity. They will guide organizations to consensus on cybersecurity practices by balancing security needs and risk. So to get real effect, we really need to think about shift left. It's not just turn on tools. It's not just do developers doing security. We need to think differently. So what do security champions do? Well, first, we need to align. We need to align with the requirements for IT that are on a really high level. We need to align with risks. We need to align with developers. And we need to kind of have this decision and understanding on what security is, what is good enough, and how much are we going to do during those like first months and going forward. They need to contribute. And I don't mean just contribute to the teams with hands-on knowledge. They also need to contribute on writing requirements. Somebody needs to translate those whole high-level requirements to something understandable. They will also collaborate with different units, make sure that everybody is aligned with what we're trying to achieve. They will talk about security. They will take initiatives, facilitate threat modeling, which is one of the topics that we're going to talk about later, and of course, educate the teams. Also, what security champion will receive is also education. So there is no way around it. You need knowledge. So who are they? Well, superheroes, right? Well, yeah and no. Basically, you want security champions to be composed of your co-workers that really care about security. So developers, testers, DevOps professionals, operations, platform, architects, Scrum Masters, and of course security people as well. But we need to be hand-on, right? Sure. So this is why you have the technical roles included. But we also need to collaborate, which is important to have everybody on board and to have this understanding. Our aim is to achieve this. So through Shift Left, it's not just shifting left development activity. We need to shift left also decision making and get this feedback out to individuals who sit on the responsibilities. So in this case, security champions will help teams hands-on improving security, but they will also help business units, IT security, operations align on what can be done and how can we do it in the best way possible. It will also help align so we actually have understanding on our security posture and our risks and decided risks in this organization. And this is going to be important because we are getting more and more cyber security requirements coming in. And if you look at financial insurance sectors, we have DORA coming in. And this means we'll get requirements on developers as well and processes. All right. So now we know roles. Now we have, the superheroes. We know what we want to achieve. But who gets to be this champion? This person needs to pull a sword from a stone? No. You need to identify people who actually want to do this. And for this to work, you need to nominate people. Do not force individuals to be security interested. So with this, you also need to present role description and expectation. Like, this isn't just community of practices. There are some goals connected. We want to achieve some traction. We want to do something with this. Another thing is to make security champion part of role description. We are having this responsibility. We need to achieve certain stuff as well. And if you take this responsibility, if you agree on doing this, there are some rewards. And for example, this is some type of career development. You will get educational opportunities to get up to date with security, knowledge, understanding. And then, of course, because you will work in the middle across the different units, you will get organizational-wide recognition. So what are our recommendations? When you roll out security champion program, don't be shy, make it official. Make sure that everybody knows that this is how we're doing stuff nowadays. You need to also make sure that security champions have the mandate they need. we are giving them responsibility. They also need to mandate. They need a mandate so they can actually do their thing. Another, and this is a really important one, you need to ensure that implementation of security champions program is recognized as a significant transformation. So you need to have a stakeholder higher up in the organization who is kind of agreed on what we want to achieve. And of course, you need to provide essential training. And this can be on the security side of the things, hands-on. This can be on the threat modeling and understanding, how you perform that. This can be so many things, and really depends on how mature your organization is. And also because this can be a struggle for a traditional organization, make sure that your organization has the needed help to kickstart this program. And of course, measure progress. Our recommendation is to find a natural context or natural situation when you want to review the metrics. And this can be on every sprint planning. This can be or every program increment. Then you want to look at metrics and look how are we actually progressing with better security. Keep official track of activities, present results to leadership, and make sure that you actually recognize people and efforts. Really, if teams do something really good, make sure it is known. And then adaptability is key. What I want to show with this picture is you will have ups and downs. It is natural. There is also no one size fits all, and this journey needs to be adapted to your organization. So, couple of closing recommendations. But once you start going, you will see the results needed. So that was about Security Champions program. There are a couple of other tools, couple of other things that you can do that provide significant effects, and they are threat modeling and metrics and gamification. So these are the ones that I'm going to cover now. So threat modeling. Threat modeling is like 2-hour session on its own, at least. So basically, it's a part of the process where you sit down with your development team and go through your application and think on how you would, as a developer, exploit your own application. You know, you're going to identify the risk, you're going to document the risk, you're going to work with this. And just of this, because of this exercise, you will boost awareness among the team members. And this is really, really important. Now, when developers understand this is a risk we have, they can actually start acting on it, reaching out to security champions, reaching out to other organizations and roles, and kind of to get understanding and understanding of what are we supposed to do here. They know what to do, but are we going to redesign our application because it might be that bad? These are sometimes bigger questions. This is an excellent environment for the team and the organization to align on security risk and strategies. So especially if you have all the applications doing this, and not only applications, but you can also implement it on other things as well. Once created, you will have efficient use of resources. You will be able to kind of align on what to do first, and if is going to provide best results for us. Another thing here is when it comes to threat modeling, it can be done on processes and tools as well. You can also threat model your DevSecOps process. How are you doing deployments? Is there somebody that can actually do the deployment on their own? How are you accessing secret? How are you storing secret? Certificates and kind of organizations as well. So quite powerful tool. Don't think applications. You can actually use this for quite other techniques as well. When it comes to threat modeling, there are different methodologies and frameworks, and there are some preferences. I, for example, have used Stride the most. I think that's one the most of teams using, but there are others. However, try to do the same methodology framework across the teams. Now, the reason for this is the last one, because if you have threat modeling that you can quickly go through, you can gather results to understand the risks on a higher level. So this is important to actually understand the risk of application and see, you know, how we're gonna progress further in fixing those. As mentioned, a lot more we can do, a lot more we can talk about threat modeling. Metrics and gamification. I must say that gamification part is one I've seen, and this is technique I love to actually get the progress. You remember this picture? Now, in this case, this was organizational wide. Now, if it's good or bad, if you look, regardless of like traction is really bad. But the number of alerts, it really depends. How many teams there are, how much code do you have, how much legacy it is. So those decisions are, you know, you need to make based on the organization. But these type of metrics you can take by team. You can create it by train if you're doing scale, or tribe, however you call it. And with the metrics, you can actually push developers into movement. So this is an example of Power BI report that we do. Now this is just for our demo environment, so you can see some weird team names, but you can have some real powerful visualization on how your team, the state of your team comparing to other teams. So how many alerts are you receiving in team A versus team B versus this strain? What is mean time to remediate? Now in this case, you know, it's really bad. But you can also look at the mean time to remediate by team. And what you're interested in is vector, showing developers, are you getting better or are we stagnating? That's a couple of last ones. Sorry about that. And we have mean time to remediate by team, repository, and so on. The important thing here, don't use this as a punishment. The second you use this as a punishment, you will have a problem of the developers actually, you know, providing you with true metrics. The importance here is true metrics. Important here is let developers show or see these and actually act on them themselves. Once we're done, we will have a situation like this, where we're focusing on the correct stuff to get the traction, together with the scanning results that we have seen with the tooling. And that's all. Thank you so much.